Hello, everyone. It is 2 o'clock and we are going to get started in a few minutes with our community webinar. I just opened up the room for everyone to come in. So I just want to give it a second or two for everyone who's joining to get logged in and online, because we've got a lot of people coming today. I'll just give it another couple seconds because it's hopping. So everybody that's joining in now, welcome. I'm so glad to see so many of you coming here and actually like coming to a live webinar. Please feel free to take a second to jump into the chat and say hello. Where are you all coming in from today? And what crazy weather are you having in your area? Devin and I are here. Devin, you're in Pennsylvania too, aren't you? You're close to me.
Yes,
yeah, so we're in Pennsylvania dealing with like more smoke today. It's fantastic. And so Victoria, and for everyone that is here today that may not be able to stay for the whole time, or those of you that will be coming later, yes, we are absolutely recording. The recording will be out tomorrow by noon. You'll get an email with a link to the recording. And for those of you that are part of our nonprofit toolkit, that have taken classes in nonprofit toolkit before, and you have a login into nonprofit toolkit, we're also going to be putting the recording up into nonprofit toolkit. And even if you've never taken a class over at nonprofit toolkit, you'll be able to log in and just see this in the free area as well. So this class, we call these community webinars. As you know, somebody that works with the nonprofit world, I think it's really important for us to be able to take the things that are happening in the world that we see that's going on, the topics that we're interested in, the topics that you're interested in, and make sure that we're bringing these conversations out to the community. We have a lot of people here today. I'm so thrilled to have you all, people from all over the country, Cincinnati, and Sarah from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Chandra from Indianapolis. Hazy and humid. Yeah, a lot of us are in the hazy and humid world too. Oh, Victoria, you're here from Brooklyn, New York. My son lives in Brooklyn right now. I went to Pratt, so I'm a big Brooklyn fan. But Jennifer's in from Kansas City and Catherine from Memphis. It's so great to have people from everywhere. Oh, another one, we've got Jeff in from Nashville. And I learned when I thought I could drive from Nashville to Memphis that they are not close together. And Julia, hey, another person from Philadelphia. So I think it's calming down. I think we've got a lot of people that are here. We probably will have a few more stragglers that will be joining in, but I wanted to kick us off today. And thank you so much for coming to talk about AI today. I am thrilled to have Devin. Are you still in McCrossin?
I am. Yes, I have not taken the name yet.
So Devin, so congratulations, Devin. You just got married, right?
Thank you.
So we're very thrilled enough. And Devin, however, did not realize that she planned this event for so close to when she was getting married. So sorry, you've been a little bit busy today. Thank you so much for coming out of the post-wedding haze, taking a pause from looking at pictures and coming to jump on here and share with us everything that you're learning about AI and what's happening. So Devin is a partner and works at the company that we do that builds our websites and does sort of our back end SEO work for us. And what happened was we got into this whole conversation about AI and what's been happening. And in the SEO work that Devin was doing for us, she started sharing a little bit about how AI is showing up in, specifically, we started talking about what's happening in the ads network. And one of the things that I'm curious about and that we're going to be talking about today is, not all of you, a lot of you some of you might be doing ads. And so if any of you guys do any sort of social advertising, search advertising, we're definitely going to be talking about what Devin's seeing in there. But I also want to kind of open this conversation up. A lot of times what happens in the search world, like in the digital marketing world, is that the newest stuff comes out through the stuff that makes money, right? The search, all the ads, things that make money are where that sort of the newest stuff is going to happen. But chances are things that show up over there are eventually going to trickle out and bubble out. You guys might be seeing some of that stuff too. And so I have a whole bunch of questions that I'm going to ask Devin today, but I am watching the chat. And I also have the Q&A box open today. And so look, we've already got some, yeah, so Lauren's already said Constant Contact has added AI and Grammarly. So here's the thing. This is a community webinar. That means it's for all of us. I'm here. I planned it. I brought Devin in. She has some expertise, but we all know that we're all just like dipping in and learning all of this. If you have tried things, that you've learned some things, if you have different experiences than me or than Devin, totally fine. If you are seeing it show up in some of the programs that you're using, I would love to know. I actually am speaking at an event called the Mill Summit in the beginning of August, which is a young professionals leadership conference. And I am talking about AI. So I'm still taking in all of this stuff and trying to learn what you're seeing, what we're all seeing, and what's happening. So put what you're learning, what you're doing, what you're seeing into the chat. If you have questions, it's okay to put them into chat, but also the chat's going to fly, as you guys are seeing, it's going to fly by fast. So it's also okay to put questions over in the Q&A. I will be looking there too. I will pause. I will ask things as we go. But with that, I think we're going to jump in. And Devin, why don't you just start off by introducing yourself, talking a little bit about the work you do and your background and how you ended up falling into this digital work.
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to share what I've learned about AI and how we're using it and what I think the future is going to be. Not that I'm clairvoyant or anything like that. But so right now I'm a partner at Boomtown Internet Group. Boomtown was founded in the early 2000s by my parents, and myself and my partners bought it 3 years ago and have doubled its size since then. So I've basically been in the digital world, digital marketing world since I was 12 or 13 years old, and have really grown up with it. I'm excited to be the leader of the business and take it in all new directions, such as really incorporating AI into our basic processes and things that we do. We're a full service marketing and web design agency.
Fantastic. And so before we get into specifically the ad space, you have this, a much longer career in digital marketing. You're like literally, truly a digital native, in every sense of the word. From the time that you started kind of working in the business, getting involved, learning this stuff, over the last couple of years, even before really the general public started to become aware of AI, what are the changes that you are starting to see? Like, how is digital evolving?
So AI or machine learning has really been a part of the space since like 2015. It's not that new. It's been around for a really long time. But now we're seeing more of these AI tools come out. One of the biggest things that's happened in the past was understanding natural language, the natural language processing, human language. That was an algorithm update for Google called BERT. And that happened a couple of years ago. And that's when you're being able to search more conversationally, which you might not even realize that you're doing, but the Google from 10 or 15 years ago would have no idea what results to return. Now they can really understand natural language processing like they haven't, and AI is just the next step on top of that. So now it's personalized and can learn as they build up throughout their algorithms within the Google space. Yeah.
So Devin, where might we be seeing AI already in our lives that we might not even be realizing is AI?
Oh, well, they're in every ads right now. They're part of every algorithm that you're using. You said they're part of, Grammarly and many of those other tools online. It's definitely in some analytics as well. So it's just very prominent.
Right. And I feel like when you go into Google and search and it goes into autocomplete, like that's been around for ages. We've all been using it. Mm-hmm. That's it. I always joke that, so I have a granddaughter who goes by the nickname Rory, Rory. And when I would talk into my phone, I would say Rory. It didn't know what and it would always type worry. And I'm like, well, that's probably appropriate. But I've noticed that over the years, it now gets it. I also, what it doesn't get yet, which is so fascinating. So many of you that have been here on my sessions before know we have a Megan that works here. Well, I also have a niece named Megan who vehemently spells her name without an H. And so I'll look at my phone and it adds the H and takes the H out, and it adds the H and it takes its way out. And it's so interesting that, like, I'm wondering if it's going to get to the point where it's going to be able to know who I'm sending it to and know which Megan has an H in it and which Megan doesn't have an H in it.
Probably, I think it's
at some
it's
point.
right around the corner. It's definitely just progressing so fast, even from earlier this year. Everyone's really adopting it. The more it learns, the more people use it and add prompts and basically ask questions, the faster it learns. So you're seeing, that AI is becoming better than like the Chat GPT that you played around with in February to what you're asking now. It's just already advanced and improved. So it's quickly changing.
Mhm. So one of the things that Victoria is asking is, since AI is learning from the content online, to what
Mhm.
extent should we be concerned about AI learning? Oh, this is, you and I actually talked about this, learning
Mhm.
our own bad habits or perpetuating incorrect ideas and techniques. I love this because when we were having our pre-conversation, that's specifically one of the things that you were talking about.
Definitely. I think you have to take it with a grain of salt. Like AI is only as good as the information that it's fed, and it
Mhm.
always fed with bias. So we have to be really careful of that. And it definitely has all of your personal data. It knows what you like. It's tailoring results for you. However, it can't get away with that forever. There's going to be copyright challenges. So you can see in the Google's AI Bard, the competitor of ChatGPT, they're already starting to cite and give references to
Yep.
that, which is really good. Therefore, you can have a little bit more confidence in what they're putting out there, rather than like ChatGPT. ChatGPT is based off of a database from 2021. So anything like current or information that you need to know within the past couple of years, ChatGPT is not going to be accurate, because that's just not the way that it was created. So it's really good to keep that in mind, and you shouldn't be using it for things like current events or anything like that.
But that's for the free version of GPT, but the paid version, GPT 4, does actually continue to search the internet, correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
They
So
definitely made a lot of updates. I don't have the paid version for that, so I'm not exactly sure how that
yeah,
version works. Or
right.
diving into the Google Bard
Exactly. You're on the other side of
generative
things. And
experience
Bard
thing.
does. So that's a big distinction. For those of you that are asking a lot of questions about ChatGPT has a free version, and then they have a paid version. The free version is the one that can only search the internet up to 2021, but Google's Bard, and also Google Bard actually searches on what's current on the internet. It's actually an active live search. It's also free. So it's important to like make sure you understand what you're looking at when you're looking at it. And it's only as good as it's been fed into it. So, all of the nonsense that's out there on the internet is also there too. I don't think it's smart enough yet to necessarily know what's real and what's not real. And funny that you should mention, how Bard, like when you search in Bard, it cites the source. So I was actually doing a test on Bard with my brother who works in privacy. And what we did was we gave Bard, look at this privacy policy, and then compare it to this privacy policy of one of the clients, and tell me whether, and make a chart telling me whether this client is meeting all of the standards of the privacy policy. And we did it, and the chart was gorgeous. And we looked at it and we're like, wow, that's fantastic. Look at this amazing thing that Bard can do. It can figure this out and find and save us all this time seeing if this client is actually compliant with the privacy policy. And then I said, can we now, we tested it on a client that he knew for sure was compliant. I'm like, can we do it again and test it on a client that is not compliant? And we ran the whole test again. We said, look at this URL and compare it to this URL. And it said the client was completely and 100% compliant. And then when you look down at the sources cited, it was citing a blog post on Medium as its source of authority. When we specifically input at them, so then somebody else asked about resources for ChatGPT prompts. So one of the biggest things is, like, your initial prompt is rarely your prompt. So then we had to go back in and be more specific and say, only look at this resource. And then it did it again, and it still didn't get it right. So I think that this is an important thing as we're all diving into this AI stuff, to know that, it can produce what looks like some pretty impressive results, but that you were saying to me before that like it's not actually a research model, it's a language processing model. So what ChatGPT's goal is to do is to mimic what a human ear thinks sounds like a reasonable response to this question. It's not necessarily doing exhaustive research itself. It's like, what will you think sounds like it makes sense? It's about language as opposed to about information. And I think right now at its current stage, we have to all remember that.
Exactly. That's a really good point. That's another reason why I prefer Bard to ChatGPT is it tells you not only its sources, but it also gives you directions on why it answered the way that it did. Gives you some bullet points there. So it's a lot easier to then refine your prompts that you're getting.
Oh, that's helpful. That's really good to know, because sometimes I know when I'm in ChatGPT, I'll look and I'll go, I hope this is all right. But like, where do you even begin to go to like begin to check if the reason you had to write the copy or do the research is because you knew zero about something, it's hard to sometimes know where to start to cross-check it. Whereas in Google, I mean, in Bard, at least it'll say, here's where I got the information from. So it gives you kind of a place to really focus your attention to really be able to see, you know, whether or not you should use this in a law case to argue in front of a judge, you know?
Yeah, it's also really worth noting too, when you're going out there to the internet, you're using bots. So you're using bots to read the internet and collect the information, and that takes processing time and power. So the AI typically uses sites that have things that are, you know, categorized and conglomerated. So like Medium has 1 million articles. So if it reads Medium, it understands a lot of different topics. Similar to that, like if it goes to Amazon rather than your e-commerce site, it's going to get all the products and all the reviews. So it prioritizes sites like that over other smaller sites use in its results, just because it's less effort to read the whole internet. So that's like other interesting thing to know about, you know, where it gets its information is it is, you know, limited a little bit by.
That's really interesting. And I think, you know, as we want to speak to the idea of where might this be going in the future, you know, I wonder if, you know, as people maybe start using Bard and start seeing sources, whether it's going to start to shift, you know, is it better to publish on my own blog post? Or if I want to be seen as a thought leader, maybe as organizations, if you start to notice that the answers to the questions that you're asking are getting answered by data that the chatbots are finding on Medium. And then, you know, it's then here's where I got this from. Will it make us all start to consider, should we actually be publishing on more public sites, on other places? Is that going to give us more brand value than necessarily even publishing on our own sites? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
So Devin, I was gonna say, do you have anything? I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, it definitely does. Authorship is a big deal online. And if you want to write articles on your own site, you definitely have to be published on other sites as well, especially on topics that have need for authority, such as like medical or legal.
Excellent. So Devin, why don't you show a little bit so we can go like, well, let's go all the way back to kind of the core topic that we wanted to talk about today, which is really your area of expertise, is what's happening in the ad space, the online, the digital advertising space, and how is AI disrupting in there?
So AI is making everything easier in the digital ad space. So a lot of ads were manual. You had to really understand the platforms, you had to really understand the bidding algorithms, and you had to have a lot of management of it. It was very essential. Now with AI in the ads platforms, it allows pretty much anyone to be an advertiser. So you can get there, and depending on how much spend you have to promote on these platforms, it makes it everything easier. You can use your AI to make your creatives. You can use AI to find your keywords and your audience, and basically refine them. So then AI will go out and run your ads, see what works, and fix them. So you don't even have to do the guess and check, the A/B testing anymore. You can use AI to do all of that for you. So it's really going to be very powerful. However, if they get it wrong, there is a risk that they're using your spend. So what I was talking about with Beth earlier was like Performance Max, which came out in 2020 for Google. And when it originally came out, it's an AI bidding algorithm for Google search ads. It was terrible. And now it's almost worth it to start. So it does take time to learn. It does take budget to learn in order to get these AI ads platforms working for you. But there is so much value there, and it's going to make things so much more efficient, and allow anyone to really be an online paid advertiser.
And I think that that's a really interesting thing to think about, because a lot of times, you know, even though I'm in the marketing space, I'm just like everybody else. You start spending money on advertising and you're not immediately getting the conversions that you're looking for. And you start to have that, like that feeling in your throat that's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm just like bleeding money. It's going out. To have a sense that maybe that time period, I mean, are you hoping maybe that time period between new client that's new at advertising is saying, yeah, we want to do this, that you'll be able to shorten that window, or that the AI will help us shorten that window between we don't know what works and now we've got something that's working?
I think it's extending it, actually.
Oh
I wish
man,
it
I
was
was
the other
hoping.
way around. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still really learning. So typically when we start a client up, it all depends on budget. So if you want to spend more money, it will learn faster. But
Mhm.
clients aren't ready to jump in head first. And you know a certain amount about your audience. You know which platforms are going to work for you if you want to do search versus display, versus video versus shopping. You have a little bit of an idea. So you can invest really heavily in one. What Performance Max really shows you is how your consumers are using all of the platforms, and it optimizes the best possible spend and ads on each of the platforms to go through the consumer journey. So typically with ads, if you want to make them work right away, you start low funnel, people who are going to convert. I can get you conversions in a month. It's not that hard. What the AI thing is going to do is it's going to get top of the funnel and allow you to really go down the customer experience with them. And it does take time to learn as it goes up the funnel. So unfortunately, it's a lot of setting client expectations. It's
Yes.
doubling your budget. It's a lot of hand holding. But then once it works, you're able to reach those top of funnel clients, which has been so very challenging.
Yes.
Smaller businesses and low spend ads.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And that's fantastic, because you're right. It's really hard. And, you know, we have like, you know, what we're, everyone here, most everybody here today is from different type of nonprofit. And, you know, one of the hardest things that nonprofits have is like, how do we find new donors? And that's always that top of the funnel stuff. It's like, how do we know that all the money we're dumping into the beginning of the bucket, when like the only signal that you often will get from something is I put money in over here, did I actually get a donation over here? And anything
Mhm.
along the pathway, you don't really know what's happening. You don't know what's working in the middle.
No.
And so that's interesting that now AI can potentially help, because it's learning, rather than you having to do the learning yourself and figure things out on your own.
Exactly. Yeah. It's taking like I said, the guess and check or A/B testing out of it. And it's able to follow the consumer throughout the whole journey.
That's fascinating. So how are you learning this? Like, what are you doing to like build your knowledge? Like, what are some of the like inside secrets from somebody that like most of us don't get access to the things that you have access to, or the connections into like what's going on at Google? You know, everybody always wants to know what the algorithm is, or wants to
Yeah.
know how are they figuring things out. So with somebody in your role that, you know, you're the person that we all come to say, what are you learning? How are you figuring things out?
So I find this very fun, and I love to kind of just do my own research online. But as my position that I'm in, being a Google partner, I get into special programs. So one of the ones that I'm in right now is Google's beta for their search generative experience. And I asked Beth if I could show my screen and share you what Google search is going to look like in the future. So just a second here, and I'll demo it for you.
And I think that this is such a great thing to be able to show, because not all of you are ever going to be advertisers, and this is why I wanted to do this. Like, okay, so there's big changes that are already happening in advertising, but everybody's in search. Everybody is you're all users of search. Yeah. So you're getting a little sneak peek into the beta. So, and look right there, you're seeing AI happen right there as Devin's typing in, and it's trying to fill things in. So tell us what's happening. Like, what's this going to look like?
So search has been all about intent recently. So I'm going to show you a couple different searches. So this first one I did is informational intent. So this one you would normally get like articles or things back for. I searched, how would you market a nonprofit business? And basically it gives you what you would expect from the regular, chatbot algorithms, some summary of what you would do, which would be like a basic output there. If you click into one of these follow-up questions that it prompts you, it essentially takes you to a chatbot. So you can ask that question and then it will regenerate the results. And then you can interact here as well, or you can go back. That functions just like ChatGPT does.
Oh, that's awesome. Can you put in, how do you find new donors? Hey, I'm here for you guys, right?
So it does take a second.
Yeah.
So here it's going to give more of a summary. So
okay.
Different points. Again, similar to what you'd find in the ChatGPT or Bard algorithms, more of an informational search, but it also gives you these references over here. So this, as far as what I can tell, I assume these were the top, organic listings, but they're not. If you look down here, they're different than what these are.
That's interesting. So like,
They're
what makes them
top.
be the things that show up at the top?
I don't know.
And I would say, sometime soon, like that's what people are going to want to find out, is how do I get into that spot?
Exactly. So I am doing my best to figure out the algorithm. I can tell it's definitely personalized. So because I am searching, it knows the type of things that I would search. And when Beth and I were talking about this webinar, one of my predictions that would become personalized, is personalized. Definitely depends on the types of articles and things that you're reading. And it also has something to do with like authority online, and things like the authorship is really important. All the stuff we were just talking about before, they want to make these have the best results, but the number one thing is the intent of the search. So we talked about before, it's all about natural language processing. So the AI feels that based on my question, these had the best answers for me.
Okay. And Jory's asking, do you have Google Bard integrated into your browser when you're getting these generative AI results?
No, this is experimental. So you can see here, generative AI experimental. It's not integrated yet. I'm in a beta program, but anyone can see it. And I'll get you guys the link that you can test out or sign up to join the beta.
Got it. So by anyone can see it, meaning if you join the beta, you can get access to seeing results like this. It's not.
It's kind of like it's not like mine's right in my browser, whereas the one that you can access right now, it's just basically a tool that you can see how it works, but you can't do all the searches in it. Whereas if you join the actual beta, you have to wait to get accepted, and then once you're accepted, it integrates into your Google search.
All right.
That makes sense. I'll send
Jory,
the
did that
link.
make sense? Did that answer it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll send the link. It'll make sense when you see the link. Yeah. So then it's
okay, good.
Thing that I wanted to show you. So these are informational. I'm doing research, no ads at the top. But if I do something like I want to, shoes near me or something like that, we're going to get ads above the AI. So it's important too to understand that Google's not going to monopolize their revenue. They're going to put
right. Yeah, they're not going to cut themselves
results
out of the picture. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you can see up here that things also change. And these are all different. And if I click on converse, you can go right to the generative AI. This would be more of a local result. So so it's showing my map listing. And basically you would know these are pulling right from your Google business listing. So these are the overviews that they provide and your star rating. So that's where they're getting this information.
So a lot of this looks pretty, I mean, it's colored differently, right? Because it's a beta, but it looks kind of similar to what we see already. So what's different about this? You know, like this is still pulling up local. I mean, it's always had that ability to do local. So what do you think, you know, it's going to give us as, you know, users, or what it might give what's it going to give an advertiser that they're not getting now?
So there isn't advertising yet within this platform. Definitely organic. So it's just an opportunity to get found and seen higher up on the page as you. Right now, they're really focusing on users. So it's about giving the users the information that they want as quickly and as easily as possible, without having to do multiple searches or scroll through a lot of results. There's so much online right now. Basically, they're trying to create something where users can quick glance at there. So what we can do is we can make our content extremely specific. So the best thing that advice I can give is to go through your sites, go through your marketing materials, update all your content, write it like you're writing it for an actual user rather than a search engine. Yeah.
Right. And I swear I did not pitch her to say that, but everyone that knows me and has been here on our stuff before knows that we believe in audience-centered branding, that like, it's really, really hard to do anything unless you know your audience beyond just a label. Like it can't just be our donors. It can't just be our volunteers or our, you know, 60 to 80-year-olds, you know, women. You know, a category isn't enough to really, you know, kind of take advantage of this new world, like really getting to understand things. And even these listings that Devin's showing here, these are being pulled from the Google My Business, right?
Yes.
Right. And so, you know, one of the things that I had to learn about SEO, like there's an aspect of SEO that lives on your website, but there's also an aspect of SEO that lives off of your website. And one of the things, having your Google My Business listing filled out specifically and thoroughly, but also with that mindset of who are you writing this for, you know, is going to be more and more important. Really getting clarity on like having those details in place directed towards, you know, we call it your perfect person, you know, and people always get nervous about being super specific about a perfect person. And I say, you have to think about it like if you had a target, who do you want to put in the middle of your target? And you have to trust that like, if you get that perfect person in the middle of the target, the ripples are gonna hit everybody else, versus if you try and be really vague and try and get everyone. I always say, like, if you're writing, like there's a sale on commas, you know, if you're a lawyer or a doctor or a baker or a plumber, then you're the perfect volunteer for us. You know, that all may be true, but that makes your message seem like an inch deep and a mile wide.
Exactly. And I think it's also important to note that you don't want to write like business writing. You want to write conversationally, because that's how chatbot works. It works conversationally. So you want to write to somebody. Commas, run-ons are horrible. Answer your questions succinctly and know your audience, just like Beth.
Right, which is a great reason. You know, I think somebody mentioned Grammarly. Somebody mentioned Grammarly earlier, that was getting incorporated into ChatGPT. If you're not, excuse me, into Constant Contact. It was Lauren who mentioned that. And so even if you're not using Constant Contact, Grammarly is a fantastic feature. It's got a lot of AI functionality in it, but it'll help you with tone and run-on sentences, and it'll tell you the level of reader that you're writing to. And even if you don't want to have that add-on of AI in Grammarly, you can even in Word, there's a way you can go in and click. I forget exactly, they move it around all the time, but you can look in like that spelling and grammar section, and it will tell you what the grade level is that you're writing to. And most of us that work in professional jobs are college educated, and we have a tendency to write everything at like, it'll say 13th grade a lot of the time. We write these really long things. And so Grammarly is a great tool to help you simplify and focus, but there's also a free tool. Oh, Megan, I'm going to forget the name of it. Hopefully she's listening to there. Hemingway app is a fantastic tool. So just literally Google Hemingway app. If you haven't used it before, it's fantastic. My mother would love it because it makes you take out all the adverbs. So all of the, actuallys and things like that, all the qualifying words that we put into things in order to, the filler words, it gets rid of all that extra language and simplifies it. It literally will talk about the reading difficulty level. And you can go into Hemingway app or Grammarly and start to correct it, and it starts to clean up all of the places where things are wrong. And I mean, it's just really fantastic tools.
Yeah.
So we have a question here from Tara. If your content does not come up in these searches, so specifically asking about this Google My Business type of search, but it doesn't, if it does come up, if your content does come up in these searches, but it doesn't lead your users to click on your website, is there a way to quantify your reach?
So I think that this is part of your impression share in Google Search Console. It's very new, so not everybody has it. So I'm not 100% sure that that's the case, but I assume you can quantify the reach via impression share. Are you familiar with Google Search Console?
Yeah, Tara, if you are. So why don't you, just in case people are not familiar with it, why don't you explain a little bit about what Google Search Console is and what it can do?
Yeah, so basically you verify your website domain on there and you open your website up to indexing through search engines bots. There's also Bing Webmaster Tools, which is the same thing. So basically it's on there, you can get metrics and it gives you stats on your performance, your speed, if any pages are down, your 404s, things like that for your website. And it's essentially just an indexing tool. So if you want your sites to be read, you can see how many people view your site online. Impression share comes from Google Search Console.
Okay, and so some people are also asking questions about things that are not necessarily related to search or advertising. So Devin, some of this may go outside your expertise, and we may discover that we have to do a whole separate session on the copywriting aspects of this. And so one of the questions is from Victoria, could a similar AI, so we've talked about Bard and we've talked about ChatGPT, are there other AIs or some other functionality out there? And maybe some of you guys that are listening have tried things like that too. But Victoria wants to know if there's a way that you could improve newsletter stats, such as open or click rates. What kind of an AI would you use for that?
Yeah, that's a little bit outside. I don't know. I haven't used it in that way, but I assume that's the type of AI that they're incorporating into email platforms.
Exactly. That's what I would have said.
Yeah.
So Victoria, that's what we're seeing. And that's what Lauren was mentioning too. So Constant Contact is integrated AI and like chat writing into it, into the platform. So we use a kind of unusual comprehensive platform for email that's like our email and our database and our landing pages all put together. And it's called Entreport. And so they have integrated the ability to put in some prompts based on what you want to write about in your email. And then the chatbot, the AI will write your email. And, some of you may have gotten an email from me written by an AI already. And when we've been doing some testing specifically on this, and we've seen that the AI written emails performed really, really, really well. Really fantastic. So I don't know so when you say a chatbot that will help improve your open rates, I believe that understanding your audience and writing great things, like great copy, like staying on tone, writing things that they want. But ultimately, I feel like the thing that gets the most open rates is by understanding your audience well enough to know what you should be delivering to them. We'll have people say things to us, well, nobody's coming to my events. I'm like, well, are you sure that you're running the kind of events that your people want to attend and want to go to? And so you could potentially, use AI to do some research on that kind of a thing, but you can also research your community and find out that kind of stuff. But the prompts that we're putting in, AI is doing a pretty good job of figuring things out. And so when we talk about a prompt, it's easy to say, you know, AI, write me an email on, let's just say you're an animal rescue, on, you know, the challenges of, you know, overcrowding in animal rescue. Maybe that's what you want to write about. So, you know, you put that in and you get something okay, but you can do things in a chatbot, even in ChatGPT, to make things more clear. Like, you can describe your audience that you're writing to. The funniest example that I've seen is actually from somebody that I follow on social media that said, write an email as if it was a Gen Z person writing it. And I mean, it was not, and I have to say, I truly don't believe all Gen Z people write like this, think like this, talk like this, but it basically gathered every like stereotypical goofiness that like you would assign to any particular generation. I mean, I was like, is this unreadable or am I just old? You know? So, but that's the thing. So the biggest thing that I would tell you is when it comes to like writing and prompts, yeah, no caps, absolutely. There was no capitalization in the entire email. And there's also, I can't even remember some of the jargon phrases, but I mean, it was hilarious and terrifying. And I was like, you know, if this is what that generation is really about, let's let the robots take over, which I don't really feel, because I believe every generation has its uniquenesses. But that's the thing, you've got to put in a prompt, and then just the thing I would say to think about the most is refine, 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 refine. That's what Devin's doing in the digital ad platforms. And it's what I think we still have to remember, that you still requires a human to say, think about this more tightly, think about this more tightly. And when AI produces information for you, look at the information it produces and then ask follow-up questions that pertain to the things that it produces, and just keep digging until you get the answers that you're looking for. Oh, so Sam's asking, any thoughts on stereotyping in general by AI and how it may apply to digital marketing? You know, when you look at audiences in and the kind of audience work up to this point, and how AI may impact audience targeting, when, like, let's look at it, start it from the point of just searching for ads and targeting ads. What do you think? Where's AI with stereotyping in audiences?
Definitely with the conversational chat functionalities of AI, it's getting their stereotypes online, so they're probably pretty horrible.
Mhm.
And I don't think that they should be used. But as far as the demographics that it's using for your ads, they're very real. I mean, they're tracking all the data on you as a person, so they're not really stereotypes. Like, there are real, accurate demographics that you can trust, because my digital footprint, you know, knows who I am, knows my ethnicity, my gender. They know everything about me. So there isn't really any stereotyping when it comes to the data that's fed into the ad algorithms.
Mhm. And I think that that's a really important point to know, that you know, right now I mean, it's still, even though it's been around like invisibly to many of us since 2015, it's only coming out into our worlds. Like, we're only starting to have these conversations publicly. You know, some people were asking earlier about copyright infringement. I'm not sure that at the moment, like, either Devin or I are really feel comfortable yet answering questions on how will this impact copyright. I mean, we all know that the writer's strike in Hollywood is going on right now. Some of it having to do with rights and pay and all that, but a lot of it connected into how is AI going to impact the work that a writer does, you know, both from a
Yeah.
scraping perspective and from a mimicking perspective. Like, there's an AI out there right now that you can speak into and train it on your voice, and then you can give it a script and it will read it in your voice. I mean, how creepy I mean, that's kind of creepy, kind of awesome. You know, as I was saying before, my brother's in privacy. He's terrified of things like that. You know, how is that going to impact cybersecurity and stuff that's well beyond this conversation? But when it comes to things like copyright, we are like at the like very beginning of the Wild West, don't you think? Like, what's going to happen? What do all of you think is going to happen?
I think one important thing to note about copyright is that AI does directly copy from websites. And it's good to know that. So if you're wanting it to write unique copy, you do have to have some type of plagiarism tool that you check it through, because I have had my clients' websites be directly copied in AI. When I ask them prompts, it just copies right from my client's site. So
Wow.
definitely copying for sure.
Yeah, and Elizabeth is sharing
Problem.
that apparently it's reached a point now that you can't copyright AI generated text. That she's learned from writer focused webinars, which is really fascinating, especially for those of us that are using, maybe you may be considering using AI generated text. And it's sort of like, even if you say this, that I've written it myself and I've copyrighted it, if the internet, if the chatbots are using all of the internet to inform things, it's going to be pulling your content. It's not, unfortunately, copy is not like an image. Well, trust me, we will have an entire separate conversation. I'll do another community webinar about image generation, because that's a huge thing as well. But I really am wondering, like, where is this going? Like, it's sort of, the questions that we have really are like, what is it learning on? How accurate are those things? And then people were talking also earlier in the chat about how ethical is those things. And I feel like there's still a lot of opinions so far about what's ethical, but not so much any, like, there's a little bit of laws, and things that are happening. Yeah, and Will is saying that the opportunity to abuse AI for nefarious purpose is obvious, definitely. It's, but the thing is, as marketers, like, the ability to abuse anything for nefarious purposes is out there. If we shut down everything because it could be used for the wrong things, we wouldn't have the internet at all, because the internet's really used. I don't know if any of you have gotten this scam. I've lately, somebody hacked into our email and then sent my bookkeeper an email, not even faking from me. They got into our email and sent an email to her from me asking for her to pay an invoice for $90,000. So, the tools that we use out there are always to be used. I think there's so much to think about, and I'm sure that has to be both figured out, evaluated, and litigated on, like, what is considered ethical. Yeah, right. And it's so funny that there's some really scary things that could happen out there. And Elizabeth's saying writers are very nervous about their work being, it's interesting that writers are nervous about having their work used by AI. And I've also heard that writers are nervous about having their jobs taken by AI. It's, when any new technology comes out, both sides of this stuff really, really bubbles up. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and I always feel with new technologies that the legislation lags. There's not going to be rules around it, and we have to figure out how to use it correctly and as risk-free as we can. So, for example, like, I don't use any AI generated content on my clients' websites. It's too risky. So I don't recommend using that. If you want to use it for email blasts or social media, things that are one and done, that's great. But I don't recommend using it on your actual site, things that will be published online for a long time.
Yeah. One of the places I've used it the most in writing, well, two places. One is research, when we're jumping into a whole new area that we don't know anything about, it's because it's so good at natural language processing. Sometimes I find that when I'm Googling, like I'm in Google right now, I'm like, I can't quite figure out how to phrase a Google search to actually return me the depth and breadth of a response that I'm really looking for. But when I go over to AI, I can just talk like the idiot you are when you're trying to figure something out for the first time. And it gives you just sort of a wider ranging, deeper exploration of things that kind of helps me orient myself to, like, okay, now I've got a place to go start with researching. And so I found using it for, like, research, not to, like, copy and paste and use what it says, but it'll take a new topic and give me like here's 7 points to consider. I'm like, oh, thank you. That was really helpful. I've also found it really helpful for giving me ideas for headlines. Sometimes I feel like I can write an entire blog post or an article or whatever I'm writing, no problem. It's easy to write. Sometimes it's easier to write 700 or 1,000 words than it is to write like 5 words for a stupid headline. You probably see that with like writing an ad, like the title of an ad, or those little teeny tiny things that are so hard to figure out how to write. And that it gives me ideas. And a lot of times what I get back from an AI is like, well, I don't like that one. I don't like that one. But if I take a couple of these pieces and combine them together, it's way better than just starting from scratch. And I think with Devin, it sounds like what you're seeing in the ad space, in the ad space, is it's doing all that thinking for you. It starts coming up with headlines and then testing them. And it's actually going to go see which of these headlines do people respond to the most. And so I think that's one of the things that's going to be really interesting about it, because in marketing, I feel like we have a tendency to think that like what we like is what's right. Oh, I like this better. This one, I like how this sounds, and we do that all like you said, like you're searching and it's giving you customized search. Our brains are also customized search. So we're going to look at a headline and pick one based on what we like the best, which may or may not be the things that our audience likes the best. And that AI is now going to help. It's almost like it's letting you do customer research. It sounds like that's what you're saying, that like in a way that like most of us could never afford to do, even though advertising is expensive in some ways. It's a lot more less expensive than doing like a massive market research project.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things to really note about it is AI learns what you want based on how you track the data. So the most important part of setting up AI for advertising is defining what you consider a goal or a conversion. So essential, because if you define it incorrectly, then the AI is going to learn incorrectly that this is what you want. If you define your goals as page views, people just browsing your site, it's going to continue to find you people who want to browse your site rather than people who want to sign up to be donors. So it's very important that you have your goal tracking in place and you only count a goal or conversion that is really what you want, or else it's going to learn incorrectly, spend your money incorrectly, you're going to hate it, and you're going to have to close down your account and start totally fresh because you can't reteach it. So that's something.
Oh, wow. I mean, I think that's right there. I think that's a huge thing, because I think we're all used to just saying, oh, that didn't work, let me start over. To the idea that if you go down the wrong path, you're training it on that path and you can't make it forget it. I have to say, I didn't even think about that as a consequence.
Yeah, exactly. I was using it in one of my call center ads, and it learned that for customer support, I was looking for someone who was interested in actually receiving customer support, not getting a call center to help with customer support. And it learned it within 3 weeks. And I had to shut down the ad after 6 months. I couldn't fix it. I had to duplicate my ad in a whole new campaign because it learned incorrectly and it thought that that was who I wanted. So it's just so essential that you define correctly the type of person that you want, the type of conversion that you want. That I can't explain how important that is.
Wow, and so what you're saying is, if you don't have to close your account, you have to close down that whole ad stream that you spent all that time building and start over. Okay, I just like to make sure that we're being clear. You don't have to
not your account. No. You just have to create a new campaign.
But anybody, and I'm sure if any of you guys have ever had to create an ad set, that's a lot of work, especially when there's been a lot of testing and trial and error that goes into refining those ads and getting them down, and how they're all divided up. It's in the beginning. It's a lot of work, and that you have to start back over again is brutal. Ugh.
Well, you can duplicate it. You can copy a campaign.
So you can copy a campaign even if it learned the wrong things from it?
Yeah, so you copy it to a new campaign. Typically people do that when they want to switch it from like a mobile versus desktop view, change, a couple of the words from it. So that's a typical thing that happens. But what you have to redo is the learning phase. So the investment up front for the AI to learn, up to 3 to 6 months sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's that upfront investment that you have to redo.
Right. So I think what I'm learning is like it's still in its infancy, and it's still going to take some time and money to really learn this stuff too. So we have just a couple of minutes left here. I want to make sure, does anybody else have any other questions, either on like specifically kind of in Devin's area of expertise, which is like the digital marketing media space? And has this been helpful? And like, what have we not, like, so I know people ask things around ethics, around copyright, around, somebody asked around, how copywriting for articles and how you decide what AI generated language is infringing on copyright. Clearly, this is a question that people are interested in. Should we do another community webinar like this on like that copyright topic? Are there other topics in AI, media, digital, even anything outside of this? What else are you guys grappling with right now that we need to be bringing in people to like bring this conversation so that we can talk about it together? Okay. Okay, so where to start to, okay, so honestly, where to start to learn about AI? Is there a source? So Devin, where have you gone to start to learn about AI?
So typically I subscribe to something called Search Engine Roundtable, which gives me everything that's going on in the search engine news. But the most learning I've done is honestly just using it.
I was going to say the same thing. Pick one and play. Like pick one and just start playing with it. I felt like, I mean, I definitely read articles. And the other thing is, so when you're in Google, if there's, there's always those articles under Google. I'm starting to see more and more of those articles showing up every day. Like just scroll down. There are articles related to different areas of AI in Google all the time. And so I just, when I'm in Google, I click on them now and read them and see who's talking about it. I'm still figuring out who are the voices to actually listen to. And the other thing to also be aware of, just like I said, that, people, Threads has been like Threads, Meta's Threads has been out for like a hot minute. And there are already people out there writing articles, doing webinars on things about their expertise in Threads. Like, stop. You're not an expert in Threads. Nobody's an expert in Threads. So you just make sure when you're reading things, just read them all with a grain of salt, going, you may have no idea if this person is actually an expertise, or make sure you go do some Googling, look at the person that's writing it to see like, like where is this person's level of expertise? Like I brought Devin on because she's a beta tester. Like she's ahead of all of us in this work, so you got to really make sure, like, does the person that you're reading about actually know any more than you? Maybe not, so pick some of them. So like a couple weekends ago, I've been using ChatGPT for a while, but then I went and got barred. And then after I got barred, I went over to Microsoft and I got there's like a Microsoft Bing plugin that if you're searching over there, you can plug it in, and that's how you get to Microsoft's image generators. So start with just go into Google and start prompts with like, how do I, even somebody was asking before, somebody that asked, I can't remember who it was now, that asked about how do I use AI to get more open, like to improve my open rate and click-throughs on my newsletter. I would take that prompt that you just asked me, put that into Google and see what the internet says. See if there's people out there that are answering these specific questions that you have, and then tell me what other things you want to learn about, and I'll find other experts and we will bring great people to you so that we can all keep learning on this topic and all the other things that you guys want to learn about. So we will save the chat. Devin, thank you so much for joining us today and bringing all of your beta expertise and knowledge to this conversation. I think it's been really helpful to all of us, in the nonprofit space to get a chance to learn about what people who work in, the B2B and the consumer product, and you work in across all these areas. Sometimes, those of us that live in the nonprofit space, we don't always have the budgets and the luxury to maybe jump onto the bleeding edge of things, but it doesn't mean that we don't want to know and learn and see where things are going and figure out how we can adapt it to what we're doing. So thank you all for joining us today. Devin, thanks for being here. I look
Thank
forward
you so
to
much for
come up with
having
something
me.
great. Wonderful. Take
I
care.
love the community environment. Thank you so much, everybody.
So wonderful. You guys were fantastic. Thank you so much. And we will see you next time.